Hey folks, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all having a beautiful Thursday. And today we're going to be doing ourselves a delightful bolognese, but it's not going to be any old bolognese. Oh no. We're going to actually do some diced up roasted veggies to go mixing through there. I'm going to show you my own recipe as well to add some richness with it. We're going to put in lots of beautiful flavors in there. We're also going to have a bit of cheeky marmite in there as well for some umami richness and some Worcestershire sauce to kind of finish it off. Then in addition, we're also going to make some homemade noodles as well instead of spaghetti. So a very delightful dish to do today. But also, we're actually going to do a whole wheat noodles as well. So you can either choose between whole wheat or plain noodles if you want. So it's entirely up to you. But anyway, hope you guys and gals will enjoy the recipe today. So the first thing we want to kind of get on with, apart from having a drink right now, is getting the base of that bolognese cooking. So the base of the bolognese is going to take roughly a couple of hours to help develop that flavor. The longer you leave it on there, slow and low, the better and the flavor is going to accumulate. And obviously, yeah, the couple of days after or a day after, the flavor is going to be even better because it's had time to kind of pull together and really get some good flavor. But we're not going to wait till tomorrow. We're going to do it today. But we're going to cook down that bolognese for a good couple of hours. So first thing we want to do is get an onion. We're going to get 4 cloves of garlic and a little bit of fresh thyme leaves as well. And we're going to get a pan on the stove, a little smidge of oil ready to go. So let's start that now. Let's dice this down. And we're going to slice this horizontally, keeping the root intact. And then we're going to follow that through with a horizontal, vertical, yes, vertical cut. Now, obviously, the more layers you get through this, the finer dice you're going to get out of it in the long run. So the more layers you can get it through it, the more finer dice. But I'm not too fussed. I would like a nice little fine dice out of this, so we'll see how this turns out. Right, so what we're going to do is pretty much do the same again with this one, and then just pretty much dice it up. So it's all a nice little dice. Right, let me grate this down. Right, so we're going to put the large pan onto a medium heat. Once that's hot, we're going to add, we're going to add the onions once we've added the oil, obviously. So a tablespoon of oil as well. Right, we're going to add the onions. This is nice and hot now. Onions, garlic, and thyme, so that's going straight in. That sizzle. I was going to say without missing the pan, but I just kind of failed on that one right there. So if you got yourself a spatula, give it a nice little delightful stir. So next we're going to get out the pearl tomatoes and we're going to dice them up. I'm just going to give my board a quick little wash. I love these tomatoes, they're great. They're so tasty, they're so fresh. We used some of these on Tuesday, was it, for the kebab? Oh my goodness me, it was so good. Or the gyro, shall I say. These are very flavoursome. I like these tomatoes. So we're going to go 4 of these, or you can go for like 2 plum tomatoes, or just 1 whole big like plum tomato if you want, you know, whichever you prefer. So we're going to basically, I guess we could dice these down. I was going to say quarter them, but let's give these a little dice down. Skins, seeds and all, because it's all the beautiful flavour in there. So let's dice that up. Once we dice these down, I'm going to add them to the pan. The frying pan is on the stove, heating up for the beef. So once that's nice and hot, we'll add a little touch of oil to it so we can brown that meat off. So we're going to add the tomatoes to the pan. All them beautiful juices, all that going in there, fantastic. We're going to put them back in the heat very shortly. We're going to do the beef first. And I don't want this like to kind of cook and forget about it and we'll burn it. I mean, you could keep it on a low heat on the other one if you want to, I guess. So we'll put this on a low so it is still kind of ticking over, but just be careful it doesn't burn. Keep an eye on it. So we're going to add a tablespoon of oil, and then we're going to start adding the beef little by little. We don't add it all at once. If you add it all at once, you're going to end up stewing the beef instead of browning the beef. So it's super important. Make sure you add the beef little by little. Be patient with it. And then as soon as it's browned, we can pop it straight into the pot in there. Right, so the beef, as I said before, is going in little by little. Don't want to go too wild with this. As I said, if you overfill that pan, you'll take the heat out. It'll just end up stewing. So just make sure that should be plenty. We don't want to add any more than that. There we go. That's all we want. Pop that straight in. Put that back on the heat. You can add more oil if you need to, but honestly, it's going to be enough fat in this. This is a 95% lean meat. So there's only 5% fat in this. There's not a lot of fat, as you can see, coming out of it. So this is quite a good quality meat. A little bit more expensive, obviously, as well. That's ready to go. Let's turn this down so we can get the pan back on. Also, chat, before you even think about sticking this in the wash, don't you dare. Don't even think about it. Don't even do it. Why? Why? What's the matter, chef? I mean, you can add some red wine to this, or white, preferably red wine because it's beef. But if you haven't got red wine, just a simple bit of, just a little drop of water in there. Deglaze that pan, because all of that beautiful beef, all the juices, all the flavor, you want to get rid of off the pan, and you want to pop it in here. So it's super important. Make sure you get all those flavors, all those juices. Look at that. Look at that flavored chat. That's what I'm talking about, right? Straight into there. So you're not losing any of that flavor. Let's add the can of tomatoes first before we add anything else. So I've got a can of diced tomatoes now. You can use a point of reference for like your own tomatoes. Technically, I'd like to use plum tomatoes. Plum tomatoes have so much more flavor, but they usually come in a big can. So unfortunately, I'm just going to use chopped tomatoes for today. So, but yeah, the plum tomatoes, if you're making a huge batch, then I'd probably recommend using the plum tomatoes because it's got so much more flavor. Tomatoes in. And we're going to give that a little mix around. Also, keep the can. Why? What do you want to keep the can for? So we're just going to add a little splash of water. I'd say about a cup or 120 ml. Maybe you want to double it up and fill it up with the can. Why? Because you've got all those beautiful juices in that can that you want to pop into there. So get yourself about a cup or two of water. Start with a cup. If you need to top it up later on, that's absolutely fine. Next thing we're going to add to this is a bit of Marmite, because I'm British and it's just the way I do things. That umami, richness, salty flavor, it really does add a lot of depth and flavor to this Marmite. So whether you like it or hate it, that's fine. But we're going to add 2 teaspoons of Marmite to that, and also some Worcestershire sauce, which is going to be about 2 tablespoons. So we're going to turn that down to a low heat. So we added all those beautiful flavors in there now. We're not going to season it until the end if it needs it. Cook that down for about an hour or 2 hours. Give it a stir occasionally. Just make sure it's okay. All that beautiful flavor in there is just going to come together ever so nicely. So we're going to roast off the veggies next, and we're going to add the veggies last minute to this later on, so we don't need to add it now. Get our veggies out. So we want half a aubergine or eggplant. We also want 1 courgette, and then we're going to go for 1 red bell pepper. Top and tail, and then pretty much cut it in half because it's going to make life a little bit more easy. Now you can stand it up and do it this way. If you don't feel comfortable, maybe you can hold it on its side and make sure you cut through. Watching your fingers though, but making sure you always have a sharp knife as well. It's really important to have a sharp knife to do this, because if you slip and slide, you could cut your thumb, you could, have an accident. So always super important to make sure you have a super sharp knife. You're less likely to have an accident. So I'm going to dice this up, not too small, into a nice little dice, not super fine, just a nice little dice. Now for the pepper. Now I prefer to cut the pepper, making sure the sticker is off as well. Hashtag skills, sorry. So I prefer cutting the cheeks off and then trimming the edges. If you want to cut it in half, rip it open, and then take the seeds out that way, that's absolutely fine. Whichever you're kind of preferred to. I prefer my cheeky way, no puns intended. So we're just going to trim the tops off as well. And then all you're left with is pretty much the pith and the seeds, which you can launch away. We're also going to take the pith out as well. So what we're going to do with this, just cut this down exactly like the courgette or the zucchini, and just cut it up into nice little squares. And then we just want half of this beautiful eggplant, or aubergine if you want to call it that, that's fine. So I'm going for the top part, which is quite a lot less than the bottom part. You can always keep this and use this on the weekend. Maybe you want to roast it off. Right, so slice this down. We're going to pop these onto a tray. Also, have a little check on your bolognese, make sure and it's okay. And top it up with water if you need to. We're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Or if you haven't got olive oil, which I need to go buy some more, which is fine, we're going to use canola or veggie oil. That's absolutely fine, whichever you prefer. Also going to add some salt. If you want to add some herbs and things like that, I guess you can, or some garlic. I feel like we've already got plenty of flavor going on in the bolognese, but if you want to add some more herbs, maybe some dried oregano or anything like that, that's fine. Ooh, talking about dried oregano, we actually forgot to add dried oregano to the bolognese mix. That's the other thing I needed to add. So I'm just going to add a teaspoon of oregano to the bolognese mix. or I'd say probably a teaspoon or two. We'll see. So this is going to go in the oven 15 to 20 minutes. Just roast it off lightly until they're nice and soft, and we'll add these to the bolognese near the end. We're going to start making the noodles instead of spaghetti, obviously. So we're actually going to do a whole wheat noodles, so it's a little bit more of a healthier option for you right there. So I'm going to do about 120 grams of plain flour and about 100 grams of whole wheat flour. So about a cup of flour and then a cup of whole wheat flour is pretty much what we're using. So let's weigh that out now. We're going to get our mixing bowl out. Also want a good pinch of salt. 20 ml of oil, yeah. We also want 2 eggs to go in this as well. So we'll grab ourselves 2 eggs, crack them open. Okay, so we're going to mix this up. Beautiful. And also, if you're going to need, if the mixture's too dry, you can always add a little splash of water to help bind it together. But honestly, I think this should be okay today. We'll see. We might need a little bit, but I honestly think this is going to bind absolutely fine. I could be wrong. But I might just add the smallest of splashes to it because it's pretty much bound, but just a very small smidge. I'm talking like half a teaspoon, if that. So I'm going to give this a knead. Don't want to knead it for too long. Just for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to let it rest. Because we're going to roll it by hand. We're not going to use a pasta machine or anything like that. I'm going to show you how to do this by hand. And it's a very straightforward way of doing it. It does require a little bit more flour than you would generally use, but I'll show you. Right, so let me wrap that up. Right, so we're going to top this up with water. Are we going to add salt to it? No, because we've already seasoned the pasta. You don't want to over-season it. If you haven't seasoned the pasta, then I'd probably recommend putting salt in the water. There we go. These are beautiful veggies. They're roasted off, softened up. We're going to add that to the bolognese mix last minute. So we're not going to add it just yet, but when we're going to serve it up, we're just going to pour them in, mix them up into the bolognese. Absolutely delicious and very, very good for you as well. So I'm going to cut this in half. We're going to need a little touch of flour, and we're going to roll this out. It's not going to take too long, but does require a little bit of elbow grease. You just need to make sure you squeeze that elbow so it comes out properly. Right, this is pretty much almost there. So we're pretty much rolling this out to a point where it's almost, you can pretty much almost see through the work surface. So you can almost see the work surface now, so just a little bit more. And then we're going to wrap this up like a book, or fold it up like a book. Touch of flour. So don't be shy on the flour with this, because you can see me going absolute crazy with the flour. Reason for this is when we cut it, it doesn't stick together. So that's why we are pretty much covering it with plenty of flour. Let's trim this end off first. And what we're going to do, depending on how thin you want these, I guess, but unless you want them really kind of thick, it's entirely up to you. We're going to kind of go slightly thin with them. We're not going to go too bonkers with it. We're going to drop these in. I'm going to blanch these off because they're going to take about 2 to 3 minutes until they're nice and soft and tender. So it's going to cook, as I said, 3 to 4 minutes. It's not going to take too long. Also, make sure when you drop it, you kind of scatter it so it drops and it doesn't clump together. So while those are cooking as well, we're going to add the roasted veggies to the bolognese now. So those are good to go, just to get them in there. Chat, is this where we get to go wild now? Ones as well. I'm going to go too wild with this. Put a few on here and there. If you want to buy your own pasta and noodles and things like that, that's fine. If you want to skip that, you can do and just use the bolognese mix, that's fine. But there we go. There is our delightful bolognese and noodles. So the bolognese we made with onions, 4 garlic clove. So we diced up the onions, peeled them and diced them. And we added the 4 garlic cloves we grated and a teaspoon of thyme leaves, fresh thyme leaves or dried thyme, that's fine. Cooked that out. And then we took it off the heat and then added about 4 pearl tomatoes, which we diced up, skin and seeds included. Then we placed the frying pan onto the stove and browned off our ground minced beef. Sorry, chat. We browned off our ground mince meat, or ground beef, if you want to call it that. That's fine. Little by little, with a touch of oil. If you put all the beef in the pan, it's just going to stew. You want to do it little by little so it browns nicely. Then we added that to the pan. We also added a can of tomatoes, 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of marmite, and 2 tablespoons, of Worcestershire sauce. And then mixed that around. Cooked it out for 2-3 hours, adding water little by little here and there and giving it a mix occasionally. As for the roasted veggies we diced them all up, the peppers, the courgette, and half a aubergine or eggplant. 180 Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit in the oven, bit of oil and salt mixed up, and for about cooking for 15 to 20 minutes, just until tender, and then we added that last minute to the bolognese. As for the noodles, we did 120 grams or 1 cup of plain flour. We did 1 cup or 100 grams of wheat flour, 2 pinches of salt, 20 ml of oil, and what was the other one? 2 eggs. We added a touch of water if needed, if it didn't bind together, which is fine. And kneaded it for about 5 minutes, let it rest for 20 minutes, took it out, cut it in half, rolled them out with dusted flour on the work surface, folded it up like a book, plenty of flour in each layer, otherwise it will stick. Sliced them up, got a pan of boiling water, carefully drop them in, and when you drop them in, just carefully let them scatter in. Don't just drop them in because they'll clump together and they'll stick together as they cook. So for about 3 to 4 minutes till nice and tender. And that's pretty much it. And then just finished off with a bit of parmesan on top. Right, you ready for this, chat? Oh my god. Honestly, ask me the last time I had bolognese, chat. Ask me the last time I had this. Oh my god, this is so good. The bolognese is nice and rich. Now, if you don't want that richness, you can leave the marmite out, but I love the rich bolognese, with all honesty. It's just a treat. And those noodles. Oh my goodness me, those noodles. Have a lovely weekend if I didn't see you or hear from you tomorrow from the YouTube. If not, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay awesome. And be a little bit cheeky as well. It's all fine. Bye for now, my friends. Take care.